Greetings and permutations, everybody, and welcome back to another drawing tutorial. Today I wanted to talk about reflective surfaces. What I find is that this is one of the most dreaded topics for my drawing students, but I'm here to tell you that it's really not all that difficult. The things we're going to cover today, though, are going to be some shading methodologies, and then I'm going to show you a little bit of a shorthand for cartoonists and illustrators. Are you ready? Let's go! If you're already familiar with shading, part of this is going to be a little bit of review, but reflective surfaces are really not all that different from most other instances of shading. It's just in how the light behaves when it hits the object. So we'll do one kind of side by side here, a matte sphere and a shiny sphere. So with a matte sphere, what we'll see is that once the light hits that edge on the upper left there, it's going to roll around into the soft gradient, into the core shadow, and then back around and out into the reflected or bounce light. On the shiny sphere, however, we see those shadows broken up into more discernible kinds of shapes. What they share in common is that both spheres have really all the same moving parts. They both have a contact point, they have a core shadow, a reflected or bounce light, and they both have a cast shadow. Where the differences occur, though, is in that lighting itself. So reflective surfaces tend to have a specular lighting, where the light and shadows have sharper edges and discernible shapes, and the matte objects have a diffuse lighting, where there's a softer gradient kind of flow from light into shadow. From a purely practical standpoint, what this would look like is drawing in the object first, but then I would begin to map out all of the light and shadow shapes that I see on the surface of the object I'm trying to draw. I would then layer in a medium value throughout the entire object, and then use either my eraser or more of the pencil to layer in or pull out light or layer in shadows. Now remember, reflective surfaces are also going to reflect adjacent objects and surfaces, as you'll see as my distorted face begins to appear on the surface of this sphere here, and they will usually conform to the curvature of that object. Now, if you've just been hanging on for the shorthand, it actually isn't all that different from what we've just done with the sphere, but this is a kind of a little trick for cartoonists and illustrators to convey the idea of shininess. And in this, I'm just dividing my cylinder, in this case, into this idea of light side and dark side, and layering in some of those same kinds of organic shapes to give it a sense of sheen, some motion, some dynamism. Do it again with something a little bit more basic, like you might see in a vector illustration of, say, a glossy balloon. Big thing to remember, whether light or shadow, those organic shapes should reinforce the idea of volume of the form. Now to recap, reflective surfaces are not all that different from matte surfaces. That shiny surface equals specular lighting, matte surface equals diffuse lighting. Draw those light and shadow shapes over the surface of your object and use the pencil and its eraser to push and pull light and shadow. Reflective surfaces are also going to reflect adjacent objects and surfaces that will help give it a sense of reality. And use organic shapes to keep those edges crisp, and I'll see you next time.